Hi, it's early morning here in Norway, and I just wanted to get in a quick review of a fantasy book before my mother and her little pet dog wakes up. So the book I want to review is named The Left Hand of God by Paul Hoffman. This is the book, and it's the Norwegian version, so it's Guds venstre hånd, which translates into Left Hand of God. So, what sort of book is this? Well, it's fantasy, but it's very, very low fantasy. It's about a young boy named Cale who grows up in a sort of monastery school. They take young boys when they are like 4 or 5, and they force them through a life of very hard discipline and abuse. And the goal is to make them holy soldiers. Now, Cale is always very rebellious, and unfortunately one day he stumbles upon one of the monks running this school torturing to death a woman, and he decides it's time to get out of there. And the book really is about his adventures. And yeah, you have some damsels in distress, and you have some political maneuvering, and of course this religious order really wants to have him back. So I'm not gonna go too much into the plot because I don't want to spoil anything. But this is sort of like an alternate history type book, but not quite. But the setting is very much like the Dark Ages, and this religious order, of course, is very much like the church. I would probably describe this book as if you take In the Name of the Rose and have a bit of Arn into that, and then add some seasoning of fantasy. There really isn't any magic in this. It's the religious order, a few strange things that happens, a bit of destiny and such thing, but other than that it could just have been an alternate history. Now, personally I didn't care too much for the book, but that is mainly because I like high fantasy. I like fireballs and dragons and that sort of thing, and this just got too low fantasy for me. But I can see that the book is very well written. The words flow very easily. So it's obviously I can't talk today, obviously, a very talented author. So I think that if you're not that into high fantasy, but more like the stories from the Dark Ages, low fantasy, alternate histories, and that sort of thing, then you will like this book. One thing I can say about it that is a bit, I don't know if I would say negative, but at least a bit strange, is that it's a bit hard to really get what age group this book is meant for. Because the language, the characters, and a lot of the things that happens in it is very clearly intended for younger audiences, or at least for teens. But at the same time the book is very, very dark, and you have some gruesome descriptions of mutilations and quite a bit of that sort of adult content. So I feel like it sort of probably would have been received best by someone 12 to 15, 16, 17, around there, but at the same time the book might be too graphic for someone of that age group. So I don't really know where the author wants to go with that. And also I mentioned the very, very dark aspects, and to me this book, I don't mind dark books or dark settings. That's something that can be very interesting and which can add a lot of emotion to the plot. The problem I have is when something is just made very, very dark just to be dark. And in this book, everyone is miserable. Everyone is abused. Everybody is followed by the evil guys. Everybody's life sucks. And to me, sometimes when a book gets too dark, it loses its impact. Without a little stream of light, without a bit of hope in there, it is easy to eventually just get numbed down and not care about the character's plight. That might just be a personal opinion. Another thing I want to say about the book is that I don't think the author has done a good job of world building. I don't really get a good idea about the setting he wants to portray. Now, I get it that the main character has spent almost his entire life at this monastery slash military academy, so he don't know a lot about the world either. But there's a lot of books where the main characters have been sheltered and don't really know about the world, so that's not really an excuse. On the characters and the plot, the book is very good. And you do feel about these characters after a while and want them to succeed. So I will give the book a thumbs up for character design, for the language used when written, which flows easily and it's a very easy read. It's very comfortable to read. Now, some books you have to really sit there and you have to concentrate and concentrate because the sentences aren't built up very well. This isn't that, it just flows into your mind like hot butter. But the world should have been better described. It doesn't have to reveal everything about the world because, like I said, the character doesn't know that much, but at least describe it properly from the character's point of view. This book's strong suits is definitely the characters and the storyline, where the world building comes in. It's sort of like the author thought, I have this story idea, I have these characters, and I just need a world to put them in. And then he went and put all his effort into the characters and the story, and the world is just a tool. So, yeah, it's character driven, and that works fine, but I always liked to have a well-defined world as well. Now, this is a good book. It has a lot of good elements and a lot of people really praise it. Like I said, personally, it's not my taste. Now, this is a part of a series. I think it's named the Cale Thomas series, but I'm not completely sure because it doesn't say on here what the series is called. The new book is going to come out pretty soon if it hasn't been published already, but I think it's coming. And I think that the next book is going to be called The Four Last Things, because the reason why I'm not sure is that it says the four last things in Norwegian here, that sometimes Norwegian books changes the name of a book or a movie and so on when they translate it. But I think it's the four last days. So yeah, if you like low fantasy and if you like altered history books, this is in its own world. It's not an altered history book, but it's so close to the Middle Ages, at least in the beginning, that it might as well have been. So if you like that kind of books, I definitely recommend this. If you're more like me and into high fantasy and you want to see characters toss fireballs and fly on dragons, then this is not the book for you. Also, I would, if you're going to buy this for a teenager or a child, I would read it first, because it do get pretty graphic when it comes to the violence. So this is my review of God's Left Hand, or is it The Left Hand of God? I think it's The Left Hand of God, that's the English title, by Paul Hoffman. A good book, but not so much for the high fantasy fans. Alright, have a nice day. Bye!